Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to go on to the rest of the design package. And that begins with something that we call loosely elevations. In fact, plan views, top views do show up in the elevations collections, but they are the working drawings that show how the set is unitized into its elements. I can turn on and off various elements. Looks like, as a matter of fact, oh, I know what we're in an old viewing style. I want to get my layer options back to show and snap others. And I shouldn't be able to grab those. Good. So if I'm in the set layer, for some reason, I'm not able to grab those flats. I have a feeling that I'm putting them in a masking layer, or perhaps they're in the show deck layer. Yes, they are. I'll move those into the set layer again. So if I wanted to just draw the show deck to show how that gets built, I could take off the, I can turn off, rather, the set layer. And it looks like that step got included in the wrong place too. That needs to be part of the set layer. And I could take a snapshot of just the show deck. But in this case, I'm going to want to take a look at just the set without the show deck involved. And I could turn off the show deck and make this a little cleaner. But I'm going to grab a rectangle tool, wrap it around what I want to take a picture of. And I'm going to say, create a viewport out of this. And I get a dialog box that says, the selected object may be used as the viewport's crop. Do you want to use this object as the crop? And I'll say, yes, indeedy, I do. So I'm going to create a new layer here. And it's going to be a new sheet layer that I'm going to call, for lack of a better name, Elevations 1. In a complicated drawing, I'll try to describe the classification of drawings that are in the elevations rather than just say elevations. I might say stage right walls or upstage platform or what have you. Something that will help me find it again. I'm going to give it that sheet title. I'm not going to want it to be in 1/4 inch scale in elevations now. We're going to want to zoom in here a little bit, and we might even want to use a drawing number here. So we're going to leave the drawing number on, and we're going to say, we want to call this our flats. I'm going to describe to you a little bit of an issue we're going to have here in just a moment. And I'm just looking at the flats. I'm not interested in the platform that's underneath them. I have selected it just to show you what to do in the sheets layer. And then I'm going to change the scale to 1/2 inch scale. I'm going to keep my drawing in top and plan. I'm going to make it a hidden line drawing. And I'm going to click OK. Now I've got my step, my platform, and my flat all together. So what I can do in this space is I can also crop out here. I don't have to show everything that is in my viewport. And so I'm going to use my select tool. I'm going to double click on the viewport, and instead of annotations, I'm going to select crop. And I usually leave these defaults on: gray outside the crop, display the viewport outside the crop. I'll click OK, and you'll see what happens. Yeah, now it's showing me the whole thing, but this is the only part I'm looking at. But I get to edit this viewport crop now. And I'm just going to edit down to looking only at that set of flats. And I'm going to exit the viewport crop, and I'm going to update that, and now I've got the plan view of it. I'm going to click it and drag it up here. Now I'm going to need to go back down to my design layers, and I'm going to, this time, grab my rectangle tool, but I'm not going to take a picture of the whole thing, the whole platform. I just wanted to show you what I can do up in sheet layers. But I'm going to choose my viewport down here, and this is going to go badly, but I want to show you how this can be also not terribly tragic when it does happen to you. I'm going to create a viewport again. I'm going to say, yeah, I want to use that as my viewport's crop. Yeah, I want to put it on the elevations. And in fact, it got placed there in 1/4 inch scale. So I think I want to make that in 1/2 inch scale. That's the old viewport. The viewport that's active now that I'm messing around with, I want to put this in as a front view. And so I can open up my object info here, and I can change the view to a front view. Where did it go? Well, you'll remember that when I cropped, I was cropping at a particular point on the drawing. It's remembering that point on the drawing, but I've changed its point of view. If that doesn't make any sense to you, you really didn't need to understand all of that. But I'm going to open up my cropping tool, and I'm going to discover in front view, I can take a look at that whole flat and change the crop on it. But now what am I going to need to do? I'm going to exit my viewport. You're going to see I have a bunch of seating in the way. And that's a little bit of a problem. And I'm not going to be able to turn off that layer in this viewport. What I can do is I can go back to my design layer, and I can turn off that layer in my design layer, turn off the seating, can turn off the theater, can turn off the masking, and now, and I could even turn off the show deck if I wanted to. And now I've got just the elements that I wanted before. Do they disappear from the sheet layer now? Let's go take a look. I'm going to update that sheet layer. And nope, you're going to see that those things are still included because it still remembers the picture that I took before. If I were to add some additional drawings to this, or if I were to change the drawing in any way, it would update and keep those changes, but it's not going to change the various views. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go back to my design layer, and this time I'm going to take a viewport of it in a hidden line in 1/2 inch scale, and this time I'm going to take it as a front view. I'm going to drop it into elevations, and I'm going to click OK. And now I have a front view of the flat and the platform that it was sitting on. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to double click on this using our crop tool, click OK, and now I'm going to come up here to my rectangle. I'm going to draw that rectangle around the object. And I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to exit my viewport and update that drawing. Now I want to align it with the other drawing, because in a set of drawings, these elements that are different views of the same thing need to be aligned. Snap it to that corner. I'm going to grab a corner of it, and I'm going to hold down my Shift key. No, I'm going to select it first. And I'm holding down my mouse button. Now I'm going to hold down the Shift key. You're going to see something happen. See that dashed green line? That's constraining my drag as I drag that viewport down the page. It doesn't let me go right or left very easily with it. And I can keep that drawing all aligned. Now I can do the same thing and create a right view over here so that I'm looking at the side of this flat. I'm not going to waste the time in this instructional moment to do that. Instead, I want to show you another powerful element of this drawing that can be very useful. I want to illustrate for the shop or for whoever's reading this what all these look like when these three views, top, front, and right side, what they look like when they go together. It's not going to cost me really any time at all. I'm going to go back to my design layer. I'm going to take a viewport. This time I'm going to let it stay in 1/4 inch scale, and I'm going to give it a right isometric view. I'm going to render it in hidden line, and I'm going to click OK. And this is going to show me the whole enchilada, how this all works. And then when I update, it should have taken away, and it did. It took away the hidden line. The thing that I failed to do in this drawing, and I'm paying for it now, is that I drew with no fills. Now what happens when you draw with no fills is that when it comes time to make an isometric or make a hidden line view, it doesn't recognize that there's anything solid about these elements. And so you still get that skeleton look like a wireline view. So that's very fixable. I could go back and go to my set layer. And I could select everything. And I could say, let's make all these solid. And then I can go back to my elevations, and I can update this. And you'll see now that I've made all of those elements solid and they all hide one another. So that's pretty much the size of it. You'll notice that this is a little bit smaller because I left it in 1/4 inch scale. It's just there for illustrative purposes. All right, that concludes this lesson.